Thank you for allowing me to join you today. My name is Chuck Daldorf. I've got 30 plus years of experience in California state and local government and also some federal government experience as well. I wanted to talk just briefly today a little bit about the California initiative process, which is our form of direct democracy in the state of California, and some pluses and minuses to the system. The initiative process was created in 1911 and was aimed to bypass the legislature and the governor, who was fully owned and operated by railroad companies doing business in California. So the idea of the initiative process as a way for citizens to create laws and constitutional amendments bypassing the legislature and the governor was a good one and had a very, very positive impact on the history of the state and the history of the California state legislature. Unfortunately, the process has not kept up with changes to a huge growth in population in the state of California, as well as technology, and that impacts the way that the initiative process puts things onto the ballot. I think one of the important things that's happened is kind of this weird flip in history, which is that now special interests and corporations are primarily the users of the initiative process because of the amount of money it takes to get something onto the ballot, the number of signatures that are involved. Frankly, it's almost impossible to do this without hiring paid signature gatherers to go out and gather an abundance of signatures, knowing that a portion are going to be found not eligible, to ensure that your initiative actually makes it onto the ballot. So there's one process to pay money to get it onto the ballot, and then a whole nother process in campaign dollars to make sure that it gets passed. And because of that amount of money, grassroots citizens, frankly, do not use the initiative process a whole lot because of that expense. And the initiative process is controlled far more by corporations and special interest groups. Ironically, the process was created to allow citizens to participate because they own the legislature. Now they don't need the legislature; they go directly to the ballot. So that's one sort of major negative impact, I think, to direct democracy on the state and the people of the state. I think another issue that's very important is the issue of accountability. When something is placed onto the ballot by initiative and passed, there are times when voters have Monday morning blues about looking back at the law that they helped vote for and pass. They didn't realize the whole context of that law and how it would be enacted. And the problem when something is passed on the California initiative process is that the only way to change it is to get another initiative onto the ballot to modify it, or you could do a referendum, which is basically the initiative process to repeal something. The legislature and the governor can't touch it. And ironically, when people start complaining about something that is passed and they go to the legislature, their elected officials can say, well, you did it, we didn't do it, so you change it. That issue of accountability in passing laws out of context, frankly, is a big negative. And in California, there is the ability to make fiscal decisions, basically forcing the budget and the budget process, or sometimes forcing the state to sell bonds for certain items. That has also been, the initial process is also used to do that. And when it comes to fiscal policy, it's very hard for voters to make decisions about things that impact the budget without understanding the totality of the budget. And even though in a voter pamphlet, there is a description of just talking about previous initiatives and what the state budget process is and how much money is involved, frankly, most voters fall in love with a title, don't read the rest of the language, enact something, and then that locks the California state budget or potentially a 30 to 40-year bond in perpetuity for that period of time. And that really handcuffs the legislature and the governor's ability to make decisions about state fiscal policy when maybe an earthquake happens next year and there's a need to stop all other funding and pour money into infrastructure or related activities. There's no ability almost on most initiatives that pass to suspend them for any kind of an emergency. So there's a huge negative consequence to direct democracy that way. Another issue that's interesting, back to the accountability issue, is that there are several controversial issues that have been in the legislature, and because of the people involved in those issues, legislators recognize that they have the ability to go to the initiative process. So in the legislature, those proposals, instead of being fully debated and fully enacted and modified, will come to a grinding halt, knowing that they're going to go to the initiative process. The item goes to the initiative process, passes, and again, when people are unhappy about it, they go back to the legislature and say, what can we do about this? We don't like it. And the legislature said, well, you passed it, you did it, you figure out how to repeal it. So I think that that's another issue of concern. Finally, in many years, there's no restriction on the number of ballot initiatives that can be on any one on any one ballot. So in 1 year, you can have as many as between 9 and 15 items that are added onto a general election ballot for voters to decide. That is very, very frustrating for the voters. The voters feel like, wait a minute, why do I have to read through all of this material to make a decision? Why isn't the legislature doing it? Well, that's the direct democracy process for you. And interestingly, those same people that complain year to year that there are so many initiatives on the ballot that they're not going to go to the ballot and they're not going to go and vote during the election because there's so many materials, and they get confused and they get frustrated. In poll after poll after poll over a series of more than 30 years, I've seen this data personally. Voters don't want to make any changes to the direct democracy process because they feel like somehow somebody's taking something away from them. So there's this odd contradiction between what the voters want and what the voters say relative to the number of initiatives that wind up on the ballot. So initiatives can be a positive thing, but relative to the idea that initiatives help drive people to the polling place to participate in the rest of the election, that data and that analysis work is very, very foggy. So I guess my only admonition in direct democracy, based on California's experience and my own personal experience having worked on a couple of initiative campaigns, is be careful what you ask for. And that's true with everything, but be careful what you ask for. Thank you for allowing me to join you today.